And I think you already kind of highlighted it in this question or your most recent answer, but uh, care is super broad. It feels like in some instances, it's really hard to narrow down for a lot of individuals who might, whether it's the type of symptoms they're experiencing or the things that they're looking for. How did you said you worked, you highlighted it already, but how do you manage taking such a lofty goal of trying to filter out what patients and where they should be routed to when it seems like the options are are so vast, and at the same time you have so many different ways patients would communicate with you. It seems like it's such a daunting problem. And how did you manage that, especially with what you showed us earlier, where not only you've figured out whether they should, the options afterwards, what they should do, but you even provide recommendations of what they can do at home and how you connected that. I mean, it's really impressive. So I'm just curious how you manage this.
I think this question is like the core of what the problem is that we're solving, right? It's
Yeah.
that, like, I previously, when I was describing the problem, I was focusing more on the business problem before, but this is the exact consumer problem that we're all extremely familiar with. And it's really the marriage of this consumer problem and that industry problem that, birthed Clearstep as kind of sitting right in between those two, to make it much easier for consumers to navigate that. You're right. It's super confusing. It's very unclear. If I wake up with pretty bad stomach pain, is this something I can go to the Minute Clinic for, or the Walgreens clinic, or do I need to go to the ER, or something in between, right? Like this is a very common problem that people are facing with. So, or facing. So I think the partnerships that I highlighted have been critical to do it, not reinventing the wheel where you don't have to. The clinical, a lot of what you're describing as the problem here is the ambiguity in what is clinically the most appropriate thing to do, right? Like, we're not doctors. We don't, the average person doesn't really know. They're not trained to know what exactly to do, and they don't have access to a doctor to be able to ask on text. So the reality is, though, that this clinical logic has been, evolving and baked for thousands of years, like actually thousands of years. And it's all in the heads of clinicians. So it's really like, how do we take that out, and how can we build partnerships where we aren't reinventing the wheel and just trying to do that from scratch, because that knowledge exists. It's about how do you capture that and deliver it to the user, or to the average person, in the easiest way possible. And I think that's what we've focused on early on in building the company, right? In the first, year and a half of building the company, we were really focused on just that, like building technology and an interface that is able to go from here's what's wrong with me to what are the viable clinical options for care. Because that's the basic question we're answering, right? And the recommendations we're giving. What is clinically appropriate? That's what we're ranking there. And then from there, it's the home care advice stuff that, again, like for every symptom you could ever complain about, there are textbooks of here's what you should do. Here are the relevant over the counter medicines. Here's home care advice. So we took an approach of building our own stuff where we thought we could create real differentiation, and partnering where we thought knowledge already existed. And I think that's pretty important for healthcare startups in particular to realize that, focus on where you are very differentiated, but like, don't try to do everything yourself, because it's going to be very overwhelming to actually deliver a solution for it. Hopefully that helps.